80% in 4 hours using a normal wall socket. An adapter for charging stations is an option. The interior, if possible, the interior of the Opel Rocks-e is even more fascinating than the outside. For instance, you sit at the very back, on the rear axle. The co-driver's seat is a fraction further back and is not adjustable, so broad shoulders don't get in the way, and you can still fit some luggage in the front. There is also a cargo version without a second seat, with room for 260 liters 140 kilos of stuff. All Rocks-e's have a glass roof panel as standard, and it is much needed, because the upright forward sits so far away that you wouldn't be able to see any traffic lights otherwise. There are fabric loops on the doors. You'll find rubber mats on the plastic floors, and in the compartments on top of the dashboard again. Far away you can put a cup and other stuff. There's hardly any insulation, although you spot some foam rubber here and there. Between your door and your seat is a row of buttons for forward, reverse, and neutral. No navigation, but a separate Bluetooth speaker. You clip your phone in the holder in the center and use it for music and navigation, as there is no built-in infotainment. Behind the steering wheel, you can put a dedicated portable Bluetooth speaker. There is also a USB charging port on board, a 2-position blower on or off, a windscreen wiper that only wipes half the windscreen, and an indicator that doesn't switch itself off after a turn. Cheap, 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 and incredibly charismatic. Fast, the Rocks-e is not, that goes without saying. But even with 2 Dutch mates in it, it keeps up nicely with traffic. At 45 kilometers per hour, you will hit a limiter. Your tech pubber could do some serious hacking with that, but it doesn't seem like it could go much faster on its own. And you wouldn't want it to, because the Opel Rocks-e has no suspension. The Opel Rocks-e is stiff. At least, that's how it feels. And because you sit on the rear axle, you get bumps and potholes extra firmly. So you take it easy and bounce through town gingerly, smiling kindly at the cyclists and scooter riders who do get wet. The steering is light logical, as it weighs nothing, and the hydraulic brakes discs at the front, drums at the rear feel fine. If the battery is not full, it also regenerates a little. But the heaviness of this is not adjustable. What does the Vauxhall Rocks-e cost? The Rocks-e makes us think, and as is often the case, it goes in all directions. We could do absolutely nothing with it in our lifetime, and would spend this amount €8,499, or €9,299 for this flashily dressed techno 100 times out of 100 on a nice used real car. But there is also a financing option from €89 per month, and for people who live in the middle of a busy city and rarely get out, isn't this little car actually the ideal solution, right? Well, the Rocks-e is more expensive than 3 electric scooters, but much cheaper than a Burr, is less maneuverable than a bicycle, just takes up parking space, and you're still stuck in traffic jams with it, because you're not allowed on a cycle track. Exactly how progressive is that? Refreshing. No one has the one answer to the question of what our cities will or should look like. What we do know is that the Rocks-e is very funny. A refreshing take on how 2 people can travel dry over short distances. We think it's cool, probably until we can no longer park at our office in Amsterdam, because the local scooterists have switched. Vauxhall is tapping into a whole new, younger target group with this, obviously with the hope of creating brand new Vauxhall drivers for life. We think those lucky enough to be able to drive this at 16 will have a new BMW or Audi 2 years later and won't look back. But that could be just us. Anyway, this Vauxhall is one like we have never seen from the brand before. Since 1983, they regularly came up with concepts for tiny city cars. We are told we don't remember them either. But this time, the time has really come for it. Thanks to Citroën, then because the Rocks-e is reminiscent of Opel's quirky Stellantis companion in more ways than one. Citroën influences on the Opel Rocks-e. So you fold up the side windows like you used to on a 2CV. In the doors, you can still see a hint of an air bump, and the bulbous styling is more in keeping with the C3 than an Astra in the first place, even if they did sculpt such a neat visor badge on it. Oh, well, details? Regardless of the brand on it, this is a particularly engaging thing. Even at first sight, it becomes clear that the Vauxhall Rocks-e is cleverly put together. For instance, the front and rear are the same, as are the doors, which both hinge on the right side, so the driver's door opens in the opposite direction. All this saves a lot of manufacturing costs. And if a small city car has to be anything, it is cheap. You can see and feel this in the materials as well. It is the kind of sturdy, pliable plastic that less cool little boxes are also made of. Dimensions and specifications: Opel Rocks-e. The Rocks-e is 2.41 meters long, 1.39 meters wide, and 1.52 meters high, so not as square as you think.